there are polls during the whole presentation. When the poll question is shown, just tick the box on the screen and don't answer in the question box. At the end of the talk, when we close the webinar, there is a short survey. Highly appreciated if you can engage the post and fill the survey. A follow-up email will be sent to you together with an e-certificate of attendance. The recording and the slides will also be shared with your libraries. Sorry, it's not really working. So here is the agenda for today. We start at 2:10. We will start with the journal publishing, how to write and get published. And then after that, at around 3:30, we will have a 5 minutes break. And just 5 minutes, we will start the academic book publication. At the end, probably 15 minutes, there will be a Q&A section. So the talk is presented by Ms. Suvira Srivastava and Dr. Ramesh Pranath. Suvira is the editorial director, Journals Leading Mathematics, Physical and Applied Science Journals of India and Computer Science in Asia Pacific. As part of the senior leadership team, her team acquires, manages, and develops journals in the mentioned subjects under different Springernature imprint. Dr. Ramesh received his PhD in Material Science and Engineering and worked as a postdoc researcher for 4 years in the USA and Singapore. He joined Springer in 2012 as a publishing editor in Applied Science in Singapore. He is in charge of developing publishing programs regionally in Australasia and Southeast Asia. Before I officially pass it on, let's do a warm-up exercise. I have the first poll for you. So which country do you come from? So tick the box on your screen. We will give you like half a minute. Okay, I see over 70% voted. So I make it a minute because I do want to see the demographic of our audience today. All right, I'm going to close the poll. And then let's see. So we have 66% come from Indonesia, and 17% from the Philippines, and the 16% from Malaysia. So I hope you are now get used of doing the polls on the screen. We will have some more polls coming in between sections, so please engage with us. So without further ado, I will pass it on to our first speaker, Suvira.
Thank you, Mabel. So while you make me the presenter, a very good morning, afternoon to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. In fact, zip zap zooming into your homes live, technology never ceases to amaze us. We, the organizers, are actually from so many different countries, and it's such an honor, in fact, to be engaging with all of you, sharing our experience, and we really look forward to an informative and engaging discussion. So, as you already know, starting with the first slide, in the times that we are in, data and research has become the new oil, and communicating your research is a skill that you can learn. It's like riding a bicycle or typing. If you're willing to work at it, you can rapidly improve. So with the goal to be more than just an author and be an effective communicator, what is it that you require? A manuscript, which is the script of your story, where each portion is logically interlinked to another so that your readers clearly understand the impact of the study. And when your papers have more impact, they will be better or highly cited. You will build your reputation worldwide and that of your institution. This paves way to establishing, obviously, new international collaborations, all of which helps you in advancing your career. However, it is easier said than done. Don't we all know that? Because to have an effective publication strategy, it is important that you are publishing in the most appropriate journal to reach your target audience, and you need to be able to successfully navigate your peer review to improve the quality of your paper and publish more quickly. And because of all this, as you can see on this slide, these are the topics that we are going to cover today. Of course, this is not all, but it will fairly set the things rolling for you. Starting with the presentation, this is a short first section, and I would love to share more about the company I represent and the products that we all bring to you. Springer came into existence 178 years ago and Nature almost 151 years ago. This again is so amazing. It was only in 2015 when Springer and Macmillan Education merged to become one country, which is what you see over here, Springernature. The company publishes many of top brands in academics, including Springer, Nature, Biomed Central, Palgrave Macmillan, all very, very well-known and established brands. You must have seen them so many a times in your books as well as on the journals. In the next slide, to help you all understand the difference between each of these brands of journals, because I have my colleague who will be talking more about books, and this is more about journals. So just to help you in understanding, how do these brands differ? What is Springer Journal? What is Nature Research Journal? What is BMC? I would request my colleague to run a short video, which will give you all a deep insight into what these each brands are. So over to you, Ken, for the first video of the day. Ken, can you hear me? I think there's something wrong. Ken, can you hear me? So there is something wrong. So we'll go on for
researchers, students.
Sorry, hello. Hi, the video was playing, but did you not see it? Sorry.
No, I couldn't. But
Okay.
if everyone says it's absolutely fine. So are we through with that?
Okay, Suvira, back over to you.
Thanks, Ken. This was wonderful because everybody could see in just a wonderful video how the different brands differ. And as the video actually stated, offering an unmatched breadth and depth of quality information means there is a journal for almost every research area, whether it is niche or broad science, and for all, be it early career researchers or maybe it is the top researchers in their field. And now what I can see is that it's more of me than the presentation which I was trying to move. Okay, fine. Talking about quality, you know, this is just a quick snapshot of a wide spectrum of academic literature published by Springernature to best suit the needs of our authors and readers. This particular slide reflects the quality of journals. We have an in-house team that constantly assess and selects and ensures that we meet the criteria of each viable abstracting and indexing database, be it Scopus, Web of Science, Medline, etc. The endeavor is to ensure that our authors and readers can discover the content and reassure them that it meets the standards of these databases. And this is a quick snapshot which I was talking about. It talks about all the products that we are publishing. Ramesh is going to talk about the books, so I won't refer to that. So irrespective of your discipline or the type of work that you do, or the platform that you are looking for publishing, whether it is journals, books, proceedings, encyclopedias, databases, so and so on, you have a publishing venue for each product that you are looking for. In this particular slide, you can see that it's not just the journals. Springer is also very well known for the number of books published. And in this slide, you can see that we are the largest ebook publishers and also the areas from which these books comes from, not just the science and technology, but also social science and humanities and medicine. Similarly, we are the largest ebook publishers. The Springer Link is actually a storehouse of knowledge, and the research which goes on in publishing these books and journals is awesome and is really out of the world. It's there to see how things are happening behind the scenes. Just as you all are engaged in your research, we are constantly trying to engage with all of you, trying to understand your requirement and make those available as services and tools, which we'll be talking about off and on. In fact, the first portion of this particular, my presentation is about scientific publishing. Among academics, the maxim publish or perish is a threatening reminder of the importance of publication. Despite its cynicism, the phrase makes an important point. Publishing findings, hypotheses, theories, and the lines of reasoning and evidence relevant to them is critical to the progress of science. Researchers distribute information about their ideas in many ways, and among those different modes of communication, peer-reviewed journal articles are especially important. The need to be smart stems from the fact that in the publishing landscape is so dense that there are almost 28,000 English language journals published by not less than 10,000 publishers worldwide. Together, they produce 2.5 million articles a year written by 7 to 9 million researchers. And this number too is increasing by 3% every year. So this is what you are competing against while maneuvering through peer review that has and still forms the foundation of academic publishing. How do we feel? In such a complex scenario, the challenge is to publish as well as to stand out, keeping both in mind. So to help you quickly form an identity, every now and then I will share helpful tips to become a smart researcher. Some of these actually come from my experience and that of the colleagues that I work with. But before we go on any further, here's a quick poll to help you all understand and even for us to know whether or not most of you know about the unique identity that a researcher can have in this publishing world. Ken, so over to you for the first poll.
Yes, the poll has just been launched. So ladies and gentlemen, please be reminded to click on the screen itself to identify which is your answers. This poll will be open for 20 seconds, and we will have a second poll after this.
As you can see in this poll, what we are asking is, do you know that there is a possibility to have a unique identity of yours in this research work? Because my name is Suvira, and there could be so many Suviras by this name. How does an editor-in-chief, or for that matter, a reviewer, identifies one Suvira from another? Is there a way out? If so, what is it? And let's see how many of you are actually using it.
Yes, the results are being projected right now, Suvira. You can see the results on the panel.
So I can't see it, so you'll have to read it out.
Yeah, 55% says DOI, 45% says ORCID, and there are no any answers for the other two options for passport and resident identity card.
Okay. See, DOI is Digital Object Identifier. This is actually the identity of the articles that you write. So when an article is published online, it gets this DOI. However, for you to be recognized, there is a possibility which is known as ORCID ID. This ORCID ID can be actually seen by this particular green sign that you see here. This is a unique 16-digit identifier reflected in an article against your name by this sign. What does this mean? This shows that what are the benefits of ORCID ID? It does not just alleviate the mistaken identity, but it also reliably connects you with your work, awards, and affiliation. So if you have changed your name, used different versions of your name, or have a name that has been translated into other language, or you have shifted from one organization to another, having and using your own ORCID ID ensures that you are correctly identified. This is not something that Springer has. This is something that majority of the global publishers are supporting. It's very easy to register and have an ORCID ID. It is free of cost. You can just Google ORCID ID and you'll go on the website. It hardly takes 5 minutes. Register yourself, get an ORCID ID, and next time when you are submitting your article to a journal, mention the ORCID ID. In majority of the peer review submission systems that every journal has, there is a provision to provide an ORCID ID. Do that. It will help you in collating all your published information in one place. This is the major section where we'll discuss how to clearly and logically organize all the ideas for the readers. What's important to understand that it is your ideas and research is your story. Those may be complex, but how you communicate these is what makes you an effective communicator. It's actually your showtime when you are talking, when you are publishing your research. But to be an effective communicator, always keep the reader in mind and provide the information that you are looking for. For example, your readers will have 4 main questions about your study. Why did the study need to be done? What did you do? What did you find? How does this study advance the field? And because of this, articles are structured in such a way to answer each of the reader's questions. So we have the introduction, the methods, the results, and the discussion. Let's look at each one briefly. However, before we proceed, here is a quick and helpful tip on the next slide. I often get queries from researchers in great hurry to publish, but just as your research takes time, so does publication of an article. There is no magic wand that can expedite peer review process. Always remember that. So keep in mind this time frame, and this varies as per the availability of reviewers, number of revisions, etc. So plan things in such a way that you have time in hand. So if you have a PhD or if you have something where you're running really short of time and you are in great hurry, then plan it out in such a way that you have some time for this publishing activity. Secondly, what can help in expediting publication is the manner in which article is written. Easy to understand and simple language works best and minimizes confusions. Sometimes using synonyms without understanding the exact meaning can completely change the meaning of a sentence. For example, I remember in one of the cases, my editorial office wrote to the editor-in-chief. She wanted to write, "Can you please help me in responding to the author?" And she wrote back that, "Can you please assist me in responding to the reviewer?" So to the author. So both the things, of course, assist and help, these are the same thing, but the connotations, the essence of what you were trying to write change. So because most of us are not native English speakers, it's fine to have absolutely simple language. It is your science, it is your research, it is the methodology, the results that the editor-in-chiefs are more interested in reading about, rather than those big words which could actually change the whole story of what you are trying to present. So before we go any further, let's run a very quick poll to identify the right writing order of an article. So while Ken will run this poll is basically to understand what is it that you first start writing. Now, if you know that you have to now write an article, you have enough data, enough information gathered, and you are all set to write. So what do you start writing? The title and the abstract, maybe the introduction and discussion, methods and result, or just you randomly pick up any portion that you feel like writing. Besides that, which is the portion that you struggle most with? Title and beginning.
I'm just going to close the first poll now.
Okay.
And then I'll just share the results very briefly. So majority of the ones that of the participants have answered that they write the methods and results first. Okay, and I'm going to run the next poll, which is which one would they struggle the most with. Let's just give them about 20 seconds to respond.
This actually talks about the portion, the portion that you struggle most with.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to close the poll now and then project the results. And it seems that for most of the audience, the portion you struggle the most with is actually the title and the beginning. 45% have actually answered that is the most difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that even I would often struggle. So let's see the right order. And I'm so very glad that majority of you are actually doing it the right way. The most logical and easiest order is where you have the confidence and what's easiest for you. So the first section you should tackle while you are doing your actual work is the materials and methods. And as you are collecting your results and analyzing them, you can start to write them up too. 2 completed sections, it really adds to the confidence. Then work on the next section after you have selected your target journal. You can then write the introduction and discussion. The reason for this is because there are usually very strict guidelines from journals on how to present these sections. It saves you time by knowing your target journal before you start writing. That way you won't have to redo things or don't have to waste time in those aspects. The very last thing you should write are the abstract and title. Why? Well, because to write an effective abstract and title, you need to have a manuscript that is nearly complete, as these are meant to be accurate summaries of your entire manuscript. Now let's deal with each section in detail, and I'm going to talk about it in the same way in which you actually write. So this is the first one. As we tackle the methods first, this section will be important for researchers. Now we need to know for whom are we writing this. So this section will be important for researchers in your field to not only reproduce what you have done, but also to build on what you have done. The more people build on your work, the more impact and influence you will have in the field, building your reputation worldwide. However, please keep in mind that this section is not only essential for researchers in your field, but it is also one of the first sections carefully evaluated during peer review. So if reviewers see that you did not use an appropriate and up-to-date methodology, they will often usually recommend the journal editor maybe reject the manuscript. So be sure to include all the information your readers need to critically evaluate your study design. Then moving on to the actual writing, first, you will need to discuss who and what was used in your study, followed by describing how you perform the experiments, including any controls necessary to validate these techniques. Lastly, you need to describe how you analyzed your data. So mention about maybe the quantification method used or the models and equations, computational analysis. You will need to define all variables and assumptions and identify the statistical tests that were used to determine significance. If you logically organize all the relevant information about your study design, you will have successfully answered the second key question. The third question your readers want answered is what you found. And remember, while I'm saying this is the third question, but in fact, this is the second thing that you will be tackling. And to answer that, we'll be writing the results section. So for this, keep in mind, however, that although you are very familiar with all your findings, your readers are not. So if you do not logically present your findings, they can easily be confused. So for many fields, a nice logical presentation includes initial observation, characterization of that observation, and finally how this observation is useful for the field. So say, for example, maybe you're fabricating a new membrane, or you are doing environmental impact assessment. So in case of a new membrane, it can be used in wastewater treatment. Well, that is in your initial observation. So those findings should be presented first. But now your readers want more information about this membrane. Maybe they want to know how you characterize it, in maybe giving more details about the characterization. So you will then present your findings characterizing the physical and chemical properties of this membrane under different conditions. Lastly, your readers want to know why this membrane is useful. What are its applications? So you will then present findings comparing the efficacy of this membrane with those of other membranes. In this way, you can logically guide your readers through the findings. And then these are some of the do's and don'ts, how and what you can do, what tense and this is something which I will not read, but it is very easily given over here. So when we have done the two important aspects, taking a clue from the first helpful tip of clarity and simplicity, you should also write the results section in subsections, wherein each has a clear subheading and corresponding to a single figure. This is because it is easier for readers to understand complex information when it is presented one bit at a time. It avoids information overload. For example, each subsection can be divided in this way, say, such as figure 1 shows, or first we, etc. In that way, readers know what to expect in that subsection. And when readers know what to expect, they will understand those ideas more quickly. With methods and results in place, let's move on to the next section, which is the introduction. Introduction tackles the first question, which I had shown in the first slide, that your readers want answered. Why your study need to be done? What were the research questions which you were answering? This is generally answered in the introduction section. So you should start off broad and then guide your readers down to your specific aims or research questions. Begin with the basic background information your readers need to understand the context of your study. But also keep in mind the type of journal you are submitting to. So say, for example, if you're submitting to maybe an international journal, be sure to emphasize the worldwide relevance of your topic. Further, if you're submitting to, say, a broad focus journal, you will need to provide more background information so people outside your immediate field can more clearly understand the context of your research. However, if you are submitting to a specialized journal, you will not need to give so much background information, because most of the journal's readers, they will likely already be familiar with your topics. So once you have provided the context, you now need to tell your readers what is currently known about your topic, that is what has been recently published about this topic, making sure you cite studies that are up to date and broadly distributed worldwide. This is especially important if you are submitting to an international journal. Having done that, focus on what is not known. This is the research problem that serves as the basis for your study and will lead into your specific aims. It is in this sync of your story that will help a reader and peer reviewer to clearly understand why your study needs to be done. So constantly in my presentation, I'll be talking about the linking. Remember, it has to be a story. It has to connect from one part to another very well to show how you have worked on it. Now, the final section, the discussion. In this, an author answers the last key question, how your study contributes to the field. Now, if you may remember, the intro section had an inverted triangle because I like to think of this section as the opposite of the intro. In the introduction, you start broad and then narrowly guide your readers down to your specific aims. But in the discussion, you want to start narrow, summarizing your key findings, because again, here you're talking about the work, and then guide your readers back to the general implications these findings have for the field. To do this, you need to interpret your findings. So describe how your findings are similar or different compared with those that have already been published. Discuss any unexpected or negative results. You should never hide results from the readers. Just be sure to describe why you think you observed those findings and how future research can further address them if necessary. Lastly, be sure to describe any limitations in your study design, your ability to identify your limitations, and what measures were taken to control those, establish your expertise in the field. At the end of your discussion, sometimes as a separate section is the conclusion. Please remember that this is the last section that will be read, meaning it is likely to be what is remembered most by your readers. So be sure to discuss what is important about your study, including the main conclusion, key implications, and potential future directions. Basically, if you logically organize your discussion in this way, it will be very clear for the readers how your study contributes to this field. And then in the next slide, besides logical structure, every manuscript, I mean, just to the point of being repeating this again and again, it speaks a story in which ideas are linked together throughout your manuscript. I already mentioned that your objectives should be directly related to the research problem, but this also means that your key findings should be only those that are related to your objectives. Finally, be sure that your conclusion answers the questions you identified in the introduction. In fact, if you highlight an important problem in the beginning of your stories, your readers expect an answer to that question by the time they finish. That answer is your conclusion. So linking your ideas together throughout your manuscript will help emphasize the significance and relevance of your study for your readers. So before I go on, here is a helpful tip. Be humble and realistic. Don't overstate the importance or significance of your result. In fact, after having worked so much on our research, we are so happy about this, and sometimes it's a very typical mindset to be mentioning, oh, this is the first in the world or best in the world, something like that. But when it comes to making a conclusion, it is often a very bad idea to say our findings prove that. This may be fine in, say, a field like mathematics, but in the majority of the sciences, this is frowned upon by our peer reviewers. So instead, some better statements could be, our findings show that, or our findings suggest that. So these are just a couple of things that come to my mind. And now, before the title aspect. So before your readers will have a chance to read your paper, most important is to attract their attention first. And this is all the more difficult in this digital world. And the onus of this lies with your title. This is what people will first see when looking for articles to read. And because of this, there are some important points to keep in mind about what you should include. Titles should clearly state what is most important about your study. That is what your readers are looking for. Title will also be used in indexing. by bases online. So be sure to include 1 or 2 keywords to improve visibility. Lastly, keep the title short. When people are quickly reading pages after pages of titles in these online databases, they may skip ones that are too long. Don't let that happen to you. Now, what you should avoid in your title. Firstly, avoid questions. These types of titles are not good because it is not what readers are looking for. They already have so many questions in mind, isn't it? What they want is answers. The answer to their question is what is important. Also avoid method-based titles, an investigation of, etc. Readers want to know what you found, not what you did. For both questions and method-based titles, readers need to read the abstract to find what they are looking for. So, and that wastes their time. So lastly, avoid abbreviations. So if people outside of your immediate field are not familiar with these abbreviations, they will not understand your title. The crux is that your title is a concise description of what is most important about your study. So spend some time on it. Moving on to abstracts. To get the attention of the readers, now you have to give them the best first impression of your paper with the abstract. If you do not, they will not be bothered to download and read it. So your abstract will be the first time they can evaluate the importance of your aims, the significance of your results, and the relevance of your conclusions. In addition, it is also the first time they can evaluate the clarity of your writing. So ensure to put the best foot forward. What do we actually do then? How do we go about it? An abstract is so very important. So here is another tip. This slide refers to what percentage of which aspect to be mentioned in an abstract. As results are most important, these in any way take most space. And then I've given some percentage to give you an idea of how to come up with the abstract, what to put where. The next slide refers to the abstract spoilers. So what are those? References, jargons, slangs, abbreviations. These are all a no-no. In fact, many a times people ask me, in the abstract, can we put reference of this particular study in inverted commas, etc. Now, if it is your show time, abstract is literally your show time. Would you like to let that show time be stolen by someone else's work? So obviously you will talk about your work, and that is what it has to be. But abbreviations, because sometimes if people who are not researchers, who are not really well familiar with your area, maybe reading it, it will just go above their head. So make it as easy to understand as possible. So think of it like this, as I said, it is your few seconds of glory that always need to be told in your words, with your story, not by referring to someone else's work. So with this, we have won half the battle and move on to another important question of getting the article published. This is the next section. The main purpose of this section is to help understand the thought process you need to go through in deciding the type of journal that is most suitable for your study. And as I said, it's easier said than done. Invariably, the goals are to publish quickly, have an impact in the field. This is how you build your reputation and advance your career. It's very simple. But as the slide shows, to do this, you need to choose the most appropriate journal and communicate the relevance of your study to the journal editor. Many young authors think that best is to publish in a journal with highest impact factor. Yes, not denying, it's actually one of a nice things, but is this really what can make you get into a very highly published, get your career rolling? Not really. Your goal is to be widely read, and that is how you have impact. To do that, you have to be sure you publish in the journal that will allow you to be most widely read. In other words, which journal will allow you to best reach your target audience is the best one for you. Just because you publish in high impact factor journal does not mean your article will be widely read. Obviously, it will look good on CV, no, not denying that, but it does not guarantee good citations. And if it is not widely read, it will not have the impact. So focus on the impact of your article, not just on the impact factor of the journal. Again, in this slide, we are talking about the easiest assessment you can make to understand where to publish. Now, in this particular slide, you can see, are those useful for researchers worldwide? What is it that you are looking for? If yes, then choose an international journal. However, if your findings are only useful for researchers in your specific area, example Asia Pacific, then you should choose a regional journal. It may be hard to convince an international journal editor that your regionally specific findings will be of interest to, say, readers in Brazil. So if you do have regionally specific findings, but you feel that they are useful worldwide, then an international journal will be appropriate. However, you will need to clearly explain this in your manuscript and even in your cover letter to the journal editor. You need to decide who will be interested in reading your findings. Who do you want to influence? So if you are trying to reach only readers in your specific field, then a specialized journal will be appropriate. However, if your findings will have impact for researchers in other fields too, then a more broad scope journal will be more appropriate to reach those readers. And how about the publishing models? These are the two publishing models authors can choose from: subscription or open access journals. Subscription journals are often more established in the field because they are older and do not charge fee to publish articles. However, keep in mind that by publishing in these journals, you restrict access to your findings to only those academics whose universities subscribe to that journal. So if you want your findings to be more widely available worldwide, then open access would be a more appropriate publication model. And the benefits of open access are not restricted to increased accessibility only. In fact, this slide reiterates what research, how open access can be helpful, that articles published open access receive higher citations, downloads, and even views. But the OA model emerged because of funder and institutional mandates. So if you are working on a project funded by such a funder, then the article has to be published OA. These articles are published under Creative Commons license and can be archived anywhere and made immediately available on publication. Whereas subscription journals require you to transfer the copyright of your articles to the publisher. If you want to retain it, then open access is important. However, not all open access journals are good. There are also so many fly-by-night operators who have made best use of this particular business model. There are some that promise quick and easy publication for a fee. Unfortunately, because of publish and perish policy in many of our countries, there are many such journals around us. So as a researcher, how do you find out which is a trustworthy journal? This is the million-dollar question. And for that, first, check the publisher. It is from a reputed publisher, maybe like Springernature, Elsevier, PLOS, then you can be confident that it is a good journal. Also check the editorial board. They should have a list of international experts with some names that are familiar to you. You can also check whether the journal is indexed. For example, if it is listed in directory of Open Access Journal, DOAJ, if so, it is likely to be a good journal, but also, is it indexed in the databases that researchers in your field use to find articles, like Web of Science or Scopus? If not, even if it is published, no one will find it. A word of caution, impact factor is only given by Web of Science. There is no other organization that ever gives impact factor, and there isn't any other term by which this is known Also check from where authors of articles are coming from. Which universities are these known which universities, and are these universities known for research in this area, so and so forth. So just use common sense. Just look deeply into the journal that you are interested in submitting your article. But the most important aspect is that almost all open access journals only charge a fee after acceptance. So if a journal asks for a submission or publication fee, you need to be careful. We as publishers, as I was saying, that we are constantly trying to look into various aspects and trying to improve our services and how we can engage better than you all. So in one of these studies, we were trying to understand why a particular manuscript gets rejected without peer review and after peer review. So in that context, research shows that if articles are rejected without peer review, then it is majorly because the article is out of scope or lack novelty. And sometimes journals have limited space. They are already overwhelmed with too many good articles that they have to publish in an issue. And if the article undergoes peer review and it is still rejected, then it could be because of insufficient data or because more work is required. There are concerns in methods, so and so forth. So before we go any further, let's run a quick poll to understand how do you all make a choice. There'll be 2 questions in this poll again.
Yep, I'm just launching the first poll now. What do you look for when choosing a journal? I'm going to allow the participants about 20 seconds to answer, and then I'll read out the results.
Yes, the first question is primarily to understand what do you look for when choosing a journal? Is it the speed or the peer review?
All right.
Reputation?
So sorry, Savira, the results are the one that is most popular is the readership and reputation of the journal with 46%, followed by speed of publication at 22%. Next is impact factor at 21%, and lastly, detailed and informative peer review at just 11%. I'm going to launch the next poll right now.
This particular question, yeah, this is to understand, have you ever used a tool? There are different publishers have come up with different tools to help you all in taking decisions very quickly. And there are certain algorithms which are run to help you understand with the click of a button where there are better possibilities. So what does the result say?
61, an overwhelming 61% says they've never used a journal suggested before. Only 35% have ever used one. All right, over back to you.
Okay, that's interesting. To help authors overcome the problem of submitting in an out-of-scope journal, because as I said, that the research shows that majority of the articles which are rejected without peer review is because of those being out of scope of the journal. We have come up with a journal suggested tool. It's very simple to use. Just copy and paste the manuscript title, your manuscript text, and then if you have certain of the parameters, you can see how the recommendations can be refined based on what is important for you, maybe impact factor or days taken to first decision, or acceptance rate, which shows probability of article getting accepted, or maybe the indexing services being aimed for. Then just click on suggest journals, this button, and with the click of the button within a second, the next slide shows how the result will appear. A list appears like this that has all the necessary data to help you take a good decision. So it has the impact factor, if the journal has that, name of the journal, how many days it is taking, acceptance rate, along with a link that you can click on, and you can actually go on the website of that journal to read more about the journal. In fact, to go on this particular tool, what you have to do is in Google, just write journal suggester plus Springer, and you will immediately be taken to this particular tool. Play around with it, and you'll be very happy with the results. I'm quite sure about that. Once you have chosen a couple of journals, Here is another helpful tip. Explore more about the journal on its homepage. As I had said, you click on the result that had come in, go on the journal homepage, and hidden within the journal metrics are many important informations required by you to take a decision. Now, if speed is important, as many of you said, readership is important, then you would like to see how many people are downloading the article. So all those kind of things are mentioned over there, and that will help you in taking an important decision of where exactly you want to submit. This slide actually refers to an excellent and free resource available to authors. It is titled Think, Check, Submit. Now, because there are so many journals available, and sometimes we can be confused whether or not this is the right journal, whether this is a predatory journal or not. So to help you all come up with this is a free website available. Just do www.thinkchecksubmit.com, and this website provides an easy-to-use checklist that researchers can refer to when they are investigating whether a journal or publisher can be trusted. Simply click on this check, and they will give you a nice checklist that you can use. Only if you can answer yes to all of the questions should you feel comfortable submitting to the journal. So I strongly encourage you to use this free resource if you ever doubt a potential journal. Now, where are we? So we have discussed how to choose an appropriate journal and how to logically organize your ideas in your manuscript. So, aren't we ready to submit? Let's do that. This section, the next one, will cover the important points to keep in mind to successfully submit your manuscript to the journal. But before we move any further, I would like to share the most asked question by young researchers, that is, how can I submit to a journal? The answer to this question is always submit online by registering as an author, as this is the fastest way to receive reviewer comments and respond, plus get decisions on the article. Talking about the need to submit online, in fact, majority of the global publishers, where you need to submit online, once accepted, you also get an online link via email, and that link becomes your gateway to all Springernature publication of yours. So again, it's very important for you to be communicating more and more online. Moving back to submissions, it is important to understand that journal editors are very busy. Most are not full-time editors, but full-time professors and head of departments. That means you are competing with other researchers for their limited time. Therefore, having an efficient publication strategy means that you effectively communicate the suitability of your study to them, make the information they need to evaluate your paper easy to understand in your cover letter. So how do we do that? How do we attract attention? First impressions are very important when you have limited attention from journal editors. It is the first time they can evaluate the significance and relevance of your study. This is how they determine if your manuscript is suitable to be published by their journal. If not, they may have many other options to choose from. They also want to ensure that your study will be interesting to their readers, as journal editors want to improve the reputation of their journals in the field. To do this, their published articles need to be widely read. Lastly, this is the first time they can evaluate your writing style. If you cannot clearly communicate the significance and relevance of your study in your cover letter, they will assume, based on their first impression, that you cannot do so in your manuscript too. So, what information journal editors need when evaluating the suitability of your manuscript? In fact, to understand that, put yourself in their shoes and think, what will you require if you need to read the cover letter of maybe an article? So you will need the title of the manuscript, article type, whether it is a research article or a review paper, survey paper, etc., plus the basic questions of why the study had to be done. What did you find? How this fits within the scope of the journal, and for this, recommend to review the aims and scope of the journal and be sure to include any key topics that are emphasized. This will help establish the suitability of your manuscript and why the journal editor should choose your manuscript over the many others they have that have been submitted to them. Lastly, you should highlight important issues related to publications, say publishing ethics, which we'll discuss on the next slide in more detail. But remember, all this has to be concise and in one page. So that's where the challenge lies. The most important thing to mention and even be mindful of is that the article has to be original and unpublished. These days, verification of author is now included in online submission system, and it is a mandatory step in SN journals now, Springernature journals now. So you have to, all the authors have to actually verify that they are co-authors of particular manuscript. And the system also requires information about conflict of interest and source of funding. Lastly, some journals will require you to state what each author contributed to qualify as an author. Many may actually not even ask you for the same, but so refer to instructions to authors of the journals. Moving further, plagiarism or overlap is a big no-no. These days, remember, many journals run authenticate reports of the submitted articles, and the similarity reports are embedded in the peer review system for the easy reference of the editors. So there are no escaping from that. It is always available for the editors to have a look at. Data fabrication and falsification, along with improper use of human subjects and animals, have comprehensive guidelines by the Committee of Publication of Ethics that every journal published by a global publisher follows. So what we often notice in few upcoming journals are the bucket full of requests. Many a times we receive like requests for change of authors. That's either during peer review process or after acceptance. So before we go any further, let's run a poll to understand your viewpoint about this important topic, change of authorship. Ken,
all right, I just ran the poll. Yep, I just ran the poll. I'm going to give everybody 20 seconds to answer. Yep, just 10 more seconds. After I close it, I will read out the results.
Okay, so let's see how many changed, added, or deleted.
Thank you for answering. So the results are that there is a whopping 87% that have answered no. So I guess that's good.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And let's run the second poll now. Okay. So I'm going to give again 20 seconds for everyone to answer.
So the people who actually requested for a change, what was the reason behind that?
Okay, 5 more seconds. All right, let's close the poll, and I'm going to read out the results. 55% said the new suggested author did not did the copy editing and added some text, followed by 34% that said more experiments or simulations or analysis had to be done, but to answer different questions. Followed by 6% that said they had to oblige to the suggested author, and then lastly 5% said discrepancy in the order of the author. All right, back to you, Suvira.
Thanks. Now, as far as, if during the peer review process, if the reviewers have asked you to undertake certain studies for which you need help and you have roped in other researchers, or then it is absolutely fine. If they are included as co-authors, again, it depends on the quantum of work which was undertaken by them and the importance of that particular aspect. But if you are obliged, or if there are discrepancies, these things, and if somebody did copy editing. Now, for example, if somebody did copy editing, there is a provision to acknowledge their support. There are certain guidelines for who can be an author. It's better that you refer to that so that you know who all can be an author of a journal article. If it is, now we often even hear about discrepancy. Now the majority of the global publishers have such well-defined article submission systems that the system in itself prompts you time and again and keeps telling you that if you are putting up a person in the first place or second place, etc., then what will be the role, whether this person will be the corresponding author or not, etc., etc. So if you have actually closed your eyes and submitted, then only these discrepancy can be there, otherwise not. So the editors understand this, and the publishing teams managing the journals well understand that. So these are also look at very trivial excuses given, so we should avoid that. Now that you have convinced the journal editor that your study may be suitable for publication in their journal, you have overcome the first obstacle in publishing. The next obstacle that you face is, do you ever get this kind of feeling when your article is being reviewed, as if all the reviewers are out to axe and shred your work? Jokes apart, peer review is a positive process because experts in your field take time out of their busy schedule to give their advice on how you can improve the quality of your study and your manuscript, and they do this for free. By being externally reviewed, peer review ensures that only those studies that are most relevant for field and that are scientifically sound are published. This process that can directly influence the advancement of the field. Many a times the process also improves your article considerably, even if it doesn't get published. Many authors say that when they started with an article, and by the time the peer review process was over in one particular journal, and then they submitted to another one, the article had gone in tremendous change, and that is what the peer review does for you. So in the journey of a manuscript, peer review is an essential step. It is important to remember that journal editors still play the essential role and make the final decision. The first decision is whether or not your manuscript meets the basic requirement for their journal. If not, they will not even send it for review. If there is some merit in the article, they will find reviewer to evaluate your manuscript. The reviewers give recommendation on how the manuscript can be further improved and whether they feel it is suitable for publication. The journal editor assesses these comments and decide whether to reject the manuscript or to send it back to the authors for revision. After revision, the improved manuscript is sent for another round of evaluation before decision can be taken. And in this whole process, it is the journal editor that makes the final decision. So, if your article has received comments, then that is actually a good sign. Now it is for you to convince the journal editor that you have all the information they need to make their decision. This is done in the response letter after revision. I explained the whole process just to give you an idea that you shouldn't be taking the reviewer comments received at the time when your article is during peer review lightly. You should take it, you should actually respond to them very carefully. So one of the most common mistakes that authors make in the response letter and that journal editors resent is only saying that the revision was done. Remember, if you are an editor, would it be easy for you to dig into various communications to find what was suggested and where the revision was made? Not really. So be sure to state the response letter what was revised and where those revisions can be found in your revised manuscript. Make those changes easy to see to, so you can highlight the revised text, etc., etc. So what information are journal editors looking for in your responses? They want to know why you agree or disagree. This shows them that you have understood the reviewer's concern. If you do disagree, be sure to support your claims with evidence. They want to know what revisions were made to the manuscript. That's why I was saying highlight it. And they want to know where these revisions can be found. By providing this valuable information, the journal editor can quickly determine if your manuscript has been fully revised and is it now ready to be published in their journal. However, what happens if after all these efforts, your manuscript gets rejected? Does this mean to say that you have to start all over again? Not really. There is a way out. Let's see. Let's run this poll and see what are the possibilities.
Okay, I've just launched the poll. We're going to give everybody 20 seconds. Yep, I can see the responses coming in now. Let's give people a few more seconds and I'll stop the poll and then read out the results. Okay, thank you everybody. So the results is actually 40% have said no, they've never ever transferred their manuscript before, followed by 30% who said yes with a destination journal in mind. And then on the third, it says, I don't know what transfer is. And then finally 6% said yes, but without a journal destination in mind. Back over to you, Suvira.
Yeah. So regardless of how good your study or manuscript is, you may still not be successful in your target journal. And because, you know, there's a lot of competition for limited space. So what should you do if you are rejected? First, relax. Remember, this happens to everyone. So please do not take it personally. Next, learn from the experience. What didn't they like about your manuscript? Can you revise it to improve it further? Lastly, resubmit your revised manuscript to another journal. As publishers, we want to help you out. So Springer has an excellent transfer desk that can help you choose which journal may be right for you from our broad portfolio of journals. So what is it? What is this transfer desk? Ken will run a very quick, small video for you all to help you all in understanding what is this.
Back over to you, Suvira.
That is what transfer desk is all about. If you are rejected, then the editor can actually send your article to this transfer desk, wherein there are all experienced PhDs who will work closely with you to help you in identifying the right journal for you. Of course, that does not guarantee a publication, but it in many ways simplify the process for you, and it's always very helpful in finding you the right destination for your published work. And to also, you know, help, because sometimes there are certain interdisciplinary research areas, or there are so many journals, but yet not the right journal for your particular research. So both Springer and Nature journals, while they are using transfer desk, Springer has also come up with these set of journals. They are being published in a different imprint, Springernature, and this particular imprint publishes only broad scope journals. Say it has one in SN Applied Sciences, SN Comprehensive Clinical Medicine, SN Computer Science, SN Operation Research Forum, so on and so forth. These are basically the transfer journals. That does not mean that they only are welcoming transfer, but they are also welcoming many other topical issues, special issues, and regular submissions also. But being broad scope, they have far more possibilities of accepting the articles. Now, and so, lo behold, what happens after the article is published? Celebration times, isn't it? Should you now just sit back and relax? Not at all. remember the dense landscape. So actively promote it. You should attend conferences to discuss your work. That's where you get to interact with your peers to discuss your recent studies. These are more likely to be your target readers, so let them know what you have published to increase your visibility in the field. By doing so, you will not only improve your impact, but you will likely establish new collaborations that can further improve your reputation and publication output. Plus, promote your article on social media as well. This is the digital age. But how do you promote and share your articles? This is what is very, very important. Are you in any ways infringing the copyright laws? Because remember, if you are publishing in a subscription journal, you are actually giving the copyright. So let's run a quick poll right now to understand how do you share your articles with your peers?
Yep, I just launched the poll again, another 20 seconds. You can see the results coming in now. Okay, another few more seconds before we close the poll, and I'll read out the results. Thank you for your submissions. And the result, Severa, is that 55% actually said they upload their published articles on ResearchGate or similar platform, followed by 22% who said they put it in institutional repositories. Next is 70% that they share it by email, and then last 6% via the shared it link. Back over to you.
Okay, so this actually means there are a lot for us to be doing. See, social networks are great for open access articles because people do not need to log in to read your papers, but these can be a burden for subscription articles. Springernature has addressed this important issue because we really understand that there is a need to share, and we are doing this with a mode of sharing, which is known as shared it. It allows anyone to read your published article even without subscription access to the journal. Let's see how can use this facility with this short video. This will help you in understanding it better.
Back over to you, Severa.
Yeah. So as the video actually reiterated, there is a provision for you to share your work, and it's very simple. The best part in this sharing is that when somebody clicks on this particular link, the download actually gets registered in your article metrics, and that way you can show that more and more people are reading your article. That's a very nice feeling when you see the usage of your article growing it. So far in this particular workshop, we do recognize that, that people would like to have more assistance in improving their publication success. And we are happy to say that Springernature can help you reach your publication goals. And how do we do that? We offer 1 and 2 day training workshops like Nature Masterclass and Publishing Academies. Nature Masterclasses are smaller, customized, and highly interactive workshops given by active nature editors. These workshops are designed to help researchers take the next step in their career and learn how to publish in top-tier journals in their field. At the same time, Nature Masterclass Online are, say, that as the title mentions, courses that can be undertaken by researchers online at their own pace. There are many other freely available resources for journal authors, editors, and peer reviewers on Springer.com. Make an effort to make the most of it. Try to explore more on this particular website to know this. And with that, actually, I come to an end of this particular presentation.
Thank you, Severa. Thanks so much. So we will leave all the Q&A section till the end after Dr. Ramesh has finished his. According to my agenda, there will be a 5-minute break. So we will start sharp again in 5 minutes, and then we will pass it on to book publishing. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming back. We have done the first section on journal publications, and now we move forward to Dr. Ramesh to talk about the book publication. Thank you, Ramesh.
Yep. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for still being with us. I'm checking the attendance list and I see about 980 people. So that's great. And most of y'all have sticked around for the section on books. So before I start off, let me just give a brief background on myself and probably and also a good opportunity to show you my face. So hi everybody, my name is Ramesh. I'm talking to you from Singapore. My friend Suvira, or my colleague Suvira, spoke to you from India, and you know, we have colleagues from different parts as well in Southeast Asia. So I am with Springer since 2012. I have been publishing books mainly, and my role covered New Zealand, Australia, and Southeast Asia. So I've been with Springer for, you know, counting about 8.5 years. And during my time, I have published many books. I have not really counted the number I should, but I think it's over 500 books. And I have this rule of thumb that, you know, this 60% of the people that I spoke to eventually write books for me. So I must have contacted more than 800 to 900 authors. And I publish all kind of academic books, which I will describe later on in my talk. I have been an academic before. I did my PhD, my postdoc, and then I decided that I should probably change my career and go in and work with Springer, and it's been good since then. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the camera because I'm afraid that my presentation might get caught up with your bandwidth. My bandwidth is not very good as well. A lot of people are online since most of us are working from home. So I'll turn off the camera for now, and I will try to be done in the next 40 to 45 minutes. So I hope I can hold your attention, and then we'll move towards the question and answers for both Suvira and myself. So turning off the camera now. Wonderful. Today's agenda, I'm going to talk mainly about 4 things: book types and book series within Springer. I'm also going to talk about the research, the way we sell our books, or the way we conduct our books, how we actually generate income, the different sales channels that we have that you may or may not know. I'm also going to talk about, as an author or an aspiring book author, what is the process that you have to go through in order to publish your book with Springer. I'm going to also talk about open access books. I think just to highlight the advantages of having your book open access. So let me jump into the first topic of the agenda. As Suvira mentioned that before, when she gave a very brief introduction to the company, Springernature, Springer has been a books company for a long time. I think we published our first book in 1842, and we are the largest print and ebook academic publisher in the industry. I'm sure my colleagues can vouch for that. And as you can see, we publish in many different areas, which includes astronomy, chemistry, food science, geography, public health, medicine, philosophy, education, language, economics, you know, the list that you see in front of you. So as you can see that I have a background in material science. So I come from the physical science and engineering background. But in today's talk, I hope to give you a general overview, because I understand that the audience consists of researchers with from the humanities background, from the social science, maybe from medicine, and also, of course, engineering and the physical sciences. So your requirement of the way you write a book might be different. I'll try to cover the general view of it, but if you need more detailed information, you can contact me directly. And if I'm not able to help you, I will definitely have a colleague from the respective subject area to assist you. Just to give you a brief background on our ebook users. I mean, who are the actual users that use our content? 80% of our users come from academic institution, while 14% come from non-academic institution, which includes private organizations, probably like clinics, R&D, of the departments of certain corporations or industries, and the rest come from librarians, business consultants, and professionals. And out of the ebook users, majority of the users are students. You can see from the chart, pie chart in front of you, you have 33% are students and 27% are academic and 20% are PhD students. So you see that most of our users are from the academic background. And if you look at our ebook downloads in terms of the geographic location, yes, Asia takes a big chunk of it, which constitute about 33%, followed by the Europeans and the Americans. So that's good to see that we have a lot of users in our part of the region. So let me start off with the motivation. You know, you're probably asking yourself, why are you listening to me about books? So many authors have many reasons for writing books. And most of the time, this caters to senior researchers who have been publishing or working in a research field for a very, very long time. And they would like to pass their knowledge to future generation so that maybe their research work will be continue to be worked on. And some of we have some early researchers, probably like assistant professors or postdocs, who have published enough material in a certain research topic that they feel that they are experts and leaders in that research area. So in order to show this in a global sense, they publish a book, you know, just to show that they have a reputation of being a leader in the field. And most of the time is also to improve awareness about your research work, as what Suvira has mentioned with journals. Also, we meet professors who have the feeling of achievement, you know, try to condense all the research work that they've been doing for the past 20 to 30 years in the form of a book. And of course, the last reason might be is that you are required to write a book, or you've been asked to write a book. If not, you don't get promoted, or you don't graduate. So that's probably the least favorite reason to write. Other reasons may also include if you want to change certain opinions. You know, these are probably mostly related to most fields. Financial gains, which I really do not feel that this is a very good reason for academic publishing, because financial gains when you should be writing the next Harry Potter book. And also sometimes it's a research funding requirement that we need to have a book published at the end of 5 years or 10 years of a research grant. Let's talk about the different types of research book out there. And I would like to first start off by looking at Springer Briefs, which is the top left corner. So Springer Briefs is a product that was launched, I would think, about 10 years ago or so. These are basically like a research monograph or a very niche research topic or a very upcoming research topic, whereby the length of the book is between 50 to 125 pages. And for such books, it is published in a book series. Most of the time, we have book series in that sense. We also have what you call the edited volume. So as you can see, the examples on the top right-hand corner, the seagrasses of Australia. So what is an edited volume book? Edited volume book is basically a book that has been compiled by an editor or a book editor. And he goes out and invites the different academics or the subject experts in that field, in, for example, seagrasses of Australia. He probably has invited different researchers throughout Australia to contribute individual chapters that addresses the research topic of seagrasses of Australia. So this is for edited volume. Next, the one below is monographs. So for monographs are basically usually a single author or multi-author. You can have 3 or 4 authors, and they address a very niche research topic. As you can see, this one talks about the trans-languaging in multilingual English classes. Wow, this is in the field of education, but I'm very proud that I managed to say that the whole title. And the next type of book that I will talk about are the major reference work. These are handbooks or encyclopedias or atlases. These are basically a very comprehensive, complete literature on a certain research field. So a handbook aspires to cater a large range of audience, from a student all the way to a senior researcher. So it is meant to be a very comprehensive coverage of a research topic. And moving along, the other type of different books that I would like to present is first is textbooks, the top right-hand corner. Textbooks are something that we have been using since, I guess, primary school. So, you know, it's basically a book written for a specific educational purpose or a course, and, you know, it has high usage. We have books also that comes out from conferences. So these are conference proceedings, for example, for meeting seminars, you know. So these are basically a book that contains a compilation of conference papers that was presented. And they are written in the form of articles and compiled into such books. And the last book, the type of book that I would like to mention is the practitioner or the professional books, as you can see. As you can see, this caters mostly to industrial practitioners who work in their fields, and they feel that writing such a book will be very useful to other people in the industry. So it is very application driven, and it is mostly related to the industry. So as a book author, you need to decide what kind of book do you want to write. And you can see that the books that types of that I have presented covers from a broad scope to a narrow scope. For example, on the left side, these are major reference works. So they covers the breadth of the area. It consolidates all the known knowledge and research in that field. Is very comprehensive rather than a specific topic, and is a reference material for students and as well as senior researchers. And then when you move to the center of the spectrum, you have books which are more, it goes into greater detail and more narrow in scope. Like, for example, we have these 2 books called product development projects. And this is, of course, talking about more niche topics in the field of developing projects. And then when you go to the right side, these are basically Springer briefs. As I mentioned, Springer briefs are very narrow, very specific niche topics. Probably it covers a certain case study, original research, rather than being as comprehensive as a major reference work. And most of our books are published in book series. So what are book series? I would like to compare book series with the counterpart of a journal. You know, it is basically a umbrella where books of a certain topics are filled into this nice books series. So like a journal, a book series, you usually have a series editor or a main editor. In a journal, you have an editor-in-chief. And then this is supported mostly by an international editorial board or advisory board, like a journal. And a book series also has very well-defined aims, scope of what the type of books they want to publish or it contains. And it focuses on very specific disciplines and all which is related to the region. We expect new books to be published every year. And most of these book series, they have assigned ISSN, they have a very nice editorial board. So we try to get them indexed by databases, like for example, Scopus, which I think everybody is very familiar with Scopus. We also have the EI Compedex, which is the engineering bread and butter. This is from Elsevier. And then you have World of Science. World of Science have what you call the book citation index. We also have book series for different type of books. Like for example, we have book series mainly for textbooks. Like for example, undergraduate textbooks in physics. And we have monographs as well, Springer briefs, proceedings, and MRW. So book series are something that we try to organize our books into certain niche topics. And in Springer, it was, I think, about in 2005 that Springer decided to make every book in Springer an electronic book. That means every new book that we publish is electronic. For journals, I believe for journals, electronic journals started in 1995 to 1997. Maybe librarians who have been in the area longer than me would know, because during that time I was just an undergraduate student. But books, we started electronic books in 2005. So we have started publishing all our books as electronic books. And also during that time, we also archived or we converted all our books published before 2005, and we converted those books into ebooks. So we have books dated up to 1800s, which is still available in Springer collection. So that is a really kind of groundbreaking thing, because we always have this term of out of print for books. That means you can't buy this book anymore, it's out of print. So that doesn't exist anymore because of ebooks. Also, most of our books are published in print, ebook, or EPUB format. And a lot of our sales deals go through the ebook collection. So what are ebook collection? Ebook collections are basically books which sell with a certain ebook collection. For example, in the field of electrical engineering, we have ebook collections in different areas like artificial intelligence, IoT. We group it all into a certain collection. And of course, for the human sciences or humanities, we have a collection for the humanities, for the medicine, for the life science. So we sell this collection to the libraries through different sales channels and different sales models. This is something which I will not get into, but just to show and demonstrate the global reach that our books have through our sales channel and marketing channels as well, but mostly through our sales channels. the availability of a book, if you publish with Springer, is very, very wide. I even asked a question once to a sales director, like how many ebook institution sales do we have? And he told me is a lot. He doesn't have the answer, but he told me it's more than 1,000. So if you do publish a book with Springer, it's available globally. Another thing that we do very well is search engine optimization. We have to do that. There is no other way that there's so much content that's being published, as Suvira mentioned just now. The case for the journal, it's also the case for the books. So it's very important to have content, your book chapter, findable through search engine optimization. And lastly, we have third-party distribution platforms that we use. For example, Amazon. We have our Springer books available as well on those platforms. Just some features that I like to talk about for Springer eBooks. Springer eBooks, there's no digital rights management, no DRM. So what does that mean? That means there's no restriction on printing, saving, or copying. Users can download the entire ebook in one click or by chapter. Every chapter is assigned a DOI, which means that you can easily cite the chapter directly. Of course, our books are indexed by Scopus, EI Compedex, and Book Citation Index. All our ebooks are accessible on mobile phones through the EPUB format, which means that if you download a book to an iPad or to your Samsung phone or Apple phone, the book file kind of organizes itself so it looks presentable on the screen. And of course, we have collections that include textbooks, major reference works, etc. So, just want to talk about what do book publishers look for when we are looking for a book proposal. For me, in most of our Springer book editors as well. So basically, we are looking for cutting edge and original research. We want to make sure that this book would be interesting to our readers who would definitely click on the book, download the book, read it and use it, or maybe even cite it. And of course, you also should have a strong theoretical underpinning, grounding in literature. Of course, we also would like a book which have a global appeal, but we also understand that there are certain research topics that are also regional concentrated. So those are kind of books that we like. And also books which have ongoing debates in the academic field. Like, for example, recently, of course, we are still going through right now with the virus pandemic, with the COVID. We have definitely, it's a hot topic right now. So we are receiving many book proposals from different areas, talking about the social aspects of the virus, talking about the medicine developed, talking about the technology, talking about the health informatics involved. Yeah. So these are topics that we're interested in, and of course, if it connects to the clear audience. So this next slide talks about the book publication process, which is a little bit different from journal publishing. So for book publishing, the first thing that you start out is you submit a book proposal. So this starts from the left side. If you look at the flow chart, you start by submitting a book proposal. So this book proposal basically contains the skeleton information or just the framework of the book for Springer to evaluate, for our external reviews to evaluate, to see if this will be a noteworthy book to publish. This book proposal goes through a review process. This review process, depending on the availability of reviewers, it takes about 6 weeks. And then if this book proposal is accepted, we sign a publishing agreement. And with this publishing agreement, we give our authors about 6 to 12 months, or I usually give my authors longer time, maybe up to 24 months to write their manuscript. And when you submit the manuscript, we also review the manuscript, just like journals. It may take 8 to 12 weeks. And then when the manuscript is accepted, it goes through a production process where it goes through copy editing, typesetting, proofs for authors, and then finally you have the published version of the book. So the first thing I'd like to get into is submitting a book proposal. So when you submit a book proposal, is something that you have to do before the contract signing process. For book proposals, we do have a very standardized proposal form that I usually send to my office. So with this completed book proposal, you usually also have to submit the author's CV or resume. We will be good, or I think it should also, elaborate with some chapter abstracts, or maybe a sample chapter or two, so that we know that this book has already been started working on. And if you do have any reviews or endorsements from an independent reviewer or a colleague within the same field, you can also send it to us. And with this information that we have with the book proposal, we send it. We usually conduct an internal review process, an external review process. We go through a few series of discussions based on comments from reviewers, and then this comments is passed on to the prospective authors, who then can agree or implement certain changes, or maybe they're not interested to work. Things like this. A lot of discussions go on, and then once we agree on most of the terms and conditions, the publisher offers the contract. As you know, these are the golden rules of publishing, because first thing is your content has to be online. So now we have moved past 1997 and 2005. Now everything is online. That's an automatic thing. So since your content is online, it's important that your content is findable, and they are findable through search engine optimization, which is mostly related to Google searches. They also have to be findable in AI services, abstract and indexing services, library portals, book search programs, e-retail, push marketing, and things like this. So when you are preparing your book proposal, here are some tips that you should consider and how it helps with submitting your book proposal. So this is very similar to preparing a journal, as you can remember Suvira's talk, where she spoke about the journal title, keywords related to journals, things like this. So this is very similar. You have keywords for your books. You have to also think about your book title. Something which is different is the unique selling points of your book, which is covered in your cover letter to a journal. And then you have useful information or back cover text of your book, which is basically an abstract that you would write for your journal. And last but not least is the author background. So I would not go through so much in big detail for this. Suvira already went through, but I think the main key thing that I want to say on this slide is that keywords are very important to tag to your journal article, your book, or your book chapter. So you should really consider when you are trying to choose keywords. Like for example, the left side is probably the very bad example of using keywords. Single word keywords like religion, or governance, or Indonesia, or welfare. Sorry. These are really, really very generic terms. You need to come up with at least 2 to 3 keywords that will help your user or the reader find your article. You can think of it as as a user who goes onto Google and he's searching for a book in the area of China's economic new normal. So what are the keywords that your author will be writing? Maybe he would be thinking about, oh, I should write on China's economy. That's a book that I need. So when he types China economy, you would want him to come across your book. So you should have China's economy as one of the keywords. So these are the things that you have to consider. And book titles as well. Book title is very important to making sure that it's search engine optimized. You can use some of the keywords that you use in your list of keywords in your main title. For example, like just now I mentioned about China's economy, or like for example that you have examples in this slide where it talks about climate change on young people in small island communities. So you can pick up some of these words on your title and use it as your keywords as well. I think that's okay. And you should make sure that your title is not too long. Make sure that it's within 65 characters. I think it's okay. And sometimes I receive book proposals whereby authors come with very interesting titles, very catchy, but they don't exactly explain what the book is about. Like for example, in this slide, if you look at the book on the left, the attribute of water. So this is my author. When he first submitted the book proposal to me, the title of the book was The Soul of Water. And I looked into the book and he talked about hydrogen bonding with oxygen and things like this. And I was like, okay, this doesn't really talk much about the soul of water, because people might think the soul of water is something more abstract, more on the humanities side, while you are talking more on the bonding. So I had to talk to him, and eventually we came up with the attribute. I'm not very happy with it, but I still make sure that the subtitle had the relevant information for the book. Unique selling points are really important as well, because these are basically the marketing texts that will be available on Springer.com and also on Amazon.com. So if you ever look at a book website on Amazon or Springer, you will see that there's a very short USPs written there. This is basically to differentiate your book from the competition. You have many similar book titles in your list, and this is basically just to make sure that your book stands out from the rest. Short text or abstract writing of the book, this is important because most of the time, just like journal articles, people will only read this section of the book and nothing beyond that. So you want to attract readers, you should make sure that the information text is well written. It gives you an accurate summary of your research. It gives the conclusion. It describes methods, summarize the results. And these are really, really important. And you have to make sure that it's well written. Biography is important as well. Sometimes I see a book title, I'm like, yeah, it's interesting, but who's the author? Is he competent? Is he the right person to be writing this book, to be teaching me on this topic? So yes, please include your biography. Don't be shy, about it. Make sure this is a good chance for you also to market yourself for potential opportunities. So please also provide this. Peer review process, as Suvira mentioned just now, this is bread and butter for academics. Publishing, we have to go through constructive scrutinization. This is to help your manuscript, your research, your book, and it also helps the field. So this is very, very crucial as well. Just some do's and don'ts for proposal submission. We do allow our authors to suggest peer reviewers. I think that's okay, because sometimes I'm not the subject expert in the field, but sometimes I appreciate some feedback from the authors. But of course, do not suggest close colleagues or your PhD advisor or your friend who has no background in the field to review, to peer review. We need someone that will be able to give independent review. And make sure that your proposal talks about competing books, because there are books that have already been published in the field. We should need to acknowledge them and also try to see how unique is your book compared to the other book in the field. We also do need a tentative table of content. I think this is something which I did not cover in my previous slide. So a table of content is also needed for the book proposal, but this is all listed in the book proposal form. So you would probably need to still provide it. So this is a question that I get all the time, and I thought it's good if I spend 1 or 2 minutes talking about converting PhD thesis to books. It's very rare to just publish a PhD thesis as written into a Springer book. It requires some significant reworking and some things that needs to be done. Because PhD thesis is basically written for examiners who are looking into your research. And while research monographs or academic books are catered to readers who are not accessing your research work, but just trying to find out what kind of research is going on in your field or the research topic of the book. So there are certain aspects that you need to remove, like for example, the literature review, you might need to rewrite it in a different manner. The method section, you probably need to remove it, or you need to rewrite it so that it's more conforming to a research monograph. You need to look into the length. The length of the thesis may be too long. And also, important thing that you have to look into is the published materials from a thesis, because most theses make up of material that have already been published in journals or other books. So you need to seek copyright permissions from those journals in order to publish the same material in a Springer book. So it's not an easy option, but it's doable, and there are many theses out there that are very high quality and really deserves it to be published in a more global platform. So just take note, I have listed a link over here from Palgrave, which is an imprint with Springer on how to revise your thesis. You can see that it requires some reorganization, rewriting, and reducing of some material in the thesis. I just want to talk about open access a little bit. Suvira already mentioned quite a bit about open access. As you know, open access basically is a published model that allows free, unrestricted online access to scholarly research. So in the case of books, you have to pay the book processing charge, and publishing OA is great to develop a niche field, connecting collaborators. There's a lot of advantages with OA publishing. The effect of OA publishing from this slide, as you can see, that it basically generates a lot of downloads and a lot of citations as well. For example, in this, what is shown over here is that a OA book or per chapter download is basically 7 times more than an average non-OA book. So, and also citations are 50% higher. So this is one of the main advantages of OA, where it's really accessible to everyone. This is an example to show 2 books, both are Springer briefs, and both are talking about the topic of education. You can see that the book on top is an open access book, The Models of Engaged Learning and Teaching. It has about 40K downloads. while the book below, which is also an education related book, it has about 483 downloads. So the exposure is even great. This one is another example. I think this is a book from the business area. The book on top is an OA book. And this has 518,000 downloads, while the book below, which is a normal non-OA book, has 17,000 downloads. Okay, so I've covered OA, and this is just the last portion of my presentation for the next 5 more minutes. I'm basically just talking about the future of books. As you know, Springer is the #1 in terms of academic books. Therefore, we see ourselves as leaders in this field. And there is a statement given by Mr. Niels Peter Thomas. He's the MD for books in Springernature, and he has basically invested in the future technology and the development of books. And we have been doing it as Springernature as a company. We've been doing it over the years. So this is our roadmap to shape the future of the book, where we want to enhance books. We want to make sure that books are enhanced both in print and electronic format. We want to improve reading options, making it more efficient and impactful. And we want to make sure that the content is more visible and our readers find the most relevant books faster. I do have a YouTube link, but I was told that it doesn't work on the webinar. So instead of playing the video, I'm just going to talk very briefly in the next slide. So these are the kind of projects or future book projects that we have in the Springernature Book Lab. So as you can see, we have 5 main projects that's going on. So the first one that I like to talk about is the living books. So living books are basically books that allow online updates to publish book chapters. That means every time there is a new development in the field, the book that is already, the ebook available online on Springer can be updated. And this is mostly done for our major reference works, like for example, handbooks, whereby certain research fields develop very rapidly. So we want a living book where it's constantly being updated. Of course, these updates go through a peer review process through the editor-in-chief and things like this. So these are one of the projects that Springer is looking at or working on. Another one is the AI generated or machine generated content. In April 2019, Springer developed our first machine generated book on lithium ion battery. It basically a machine generated overview of the latest research in this field. And this book is very popular. Many people are amazed by how a computer or machine AI is able to author a book. So this is one of the projects. Also, we look at social reading, where we would like our books to be linked to social media for readers to get more thoughts, discussion, and things like this on social media. Print and ebook integration, whereby you have more data or more electronic resources integrated with the book. For example, when you're looking through an ebook, you can click on a certain link and it plays a video, or it shows a certain data, or it shows a certain simulation and audio, something interactive, all integrated into the ebook. So this is something that we're looking at. So like every book will come out like an app in that sense. We are also looking to integrating such interactive textbooks as well. Like for example, the MOOC, whereby you have embedded links directing to online courses, and these are all projects that are in the pipeline. And lastly, we looked at also on online distance learning, which is really important. We have an online learning platform called iversity. I think this especially in the situation with the pandemic, whereby most of classes are done online from home. So this is something that we definitely are looking into as well. Another interesting thing that I like to show is, which was demonstrated in the Frankfurt Book Fair, basically integrating virtual reality with our books. As you can see, you can put on a VR set and you can start reading your book, looking around, looking at the different pages. So you have a 360 view of a book. So these are all nice, fancy stuff that we are developing in Spring. I also like to mention that we have a huge amount of resources, as Suvira mentioned, for journals. We also have for book authors as well. You can go to our Springer website and access this content. And as choosing the right publisher is critical. For example, Springer, we are definitely evolved in developing new technology for the electronic world. We are always looking for new sales channels to make sure your work is distributed worldwide. We have a reputation, a good team of professionals, and we provide support at all levels. With that, I'd like to show you all a little infographic that Springer has made, the books team have made, which is called The Wonderful World of Book Gardening. It's basically a flow of how a book is conceived. For example, you can see that everything is below earth and above on the land. And on the land, you have a library on the top right corner where people go in and they plant an idea for a book. And then you can see some researchers doing research on the left, people being creative about the kind of book ideas that they want to develop. And once they're ready to write the book, they write their book, and then they bring their book down to the underground world of Springer, where we have all our editors, our production work, our copy editing, and many, many different things that happens underground. So with that, I will end my presentation and invite questions or comments from the audience. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you to Suvira and Ramesh. I hope everyone can hear me. Looking at time, we actually have another 15 minutes. Yeah, I just want to share that thanks for all the feedback that we received through the chat box. We actually received a lot of questions. I think because of time, I actually managed to show a little bit, just compile maybe 3 questions each to Suvira and Ramesh. I'm going to just project my screen and see if the speakers can actually see my screen right now. I hope people can see my screen. Yep, I assume it is a yes. So I think this is one of the questions about peer review. We receive a lot of questions about the peer review, but I think this is one of it. Perhaps Suvira would like to take it. Does Springernature identify the peer reviewer? Why do some publishers ask the author to identify peer review for their submitted article?
Some research can be always very niche, and it can be difficult for the journals to find peer reviewers for those areas. So some of the editors and editorial boards may decide to ask their authors to be mentioning who can actually review their papers, but this does not actually mean that they will be using these particular reviewers to review your paper. It's a nice way of building their database of peer reviewers, and also to pick and choose among the various options being provided. So it is just that, but it does not mean that the editors or the editorial board is going to actually make use of those peer reviewers.
Okay, got it. So I hope they answer the questions for this. The next questions that I got is actually about authorships. I'm sorry, my screen is actually freezing now. Just trying to show it again. The next question. I'm sorry, that's a technical.
That doesn't matter. Why don't you read the question?
Okay, actually my screen is freezing. It's about the authorships. It's a long question from one of the audience. Suvira, if you can see the slide that I sent it over to you. Just hang on.
Is it about too long reviewing? Why does it take too long to review? Or is it about the professor being the co-author?
Okay, I can read it out. So my screen is now on freeze. Okay, give me a moment. Okay, I hope it works now. I'm sorry for the technical. Okay, it's about the primary authorship. So it's the primary author of the journals, but your co-author is a professor and already have experience publishing journal. Would there be a problem for professors to be a corresponding author? Will the corresponding author then be the only one to receive the emails from the journal's editor? And that's also a questions about the royalty fees for the primary author.
Yeah. See, corresponding author means, just as the title states, that person corresponds with the peer reviewers as well as takes responsibility when the article goes in production, looks at corrections and corresponds with the production also. So anybody who has that time can be the corresponding author. That is first part of your question. The second part is, will that person receive royalties? Now, the journal articles do not receive any royalty fee. So there is no provision, there is no question of an article being published and receiving money for that. So that query of yours is already taken care of. Should we include, okay, and what was the next part of that?
The royalty fees. Okay, yes. If the corresponding author is the only one that receiving the correspondent emails from the editor, and the last
yes.
part is the royalty fee.
Yeah, so yes, I've answered both the aspects, that yes, the corresponding author will be corresponding with the editor, not just with the editors and reviewers, but also with production. So it depends who has the time. That's why most of the time professors do not prefer to be taking that responsibility. But if they have the time, why not? As far as royalty fees are concerned, there is no royalty for publishing any article.
Right. Thank you, Suvira. I guess the last questions that I can actually read out is that's a comment saying that I have a published paper in the Predator journals. So Dean noted before that, but can that paper be pulled out and resubmit to a legitimate journal? So what the process is gonna be?
Yeah. See, as the question in itself states that the article was published, anything that has been published cannot be withdrawn. Your article can be withdrawn as long as it has, not been published. But once published, then we really can't do much about it. It's just a lesson learned. That is how life is. If you were not aware of it, it's a good lesson learned. That is how we can take it.
Okay. Thank you, Suvira, for the questions. I think we have a long list of journal questions, but I think because of the time limitations, I guess we should spend a little bit of time with Ramesh for the questions regarding the books. Thank you, Suvira. So Ramesh, I'm trying to project my screen right now because these are the 3 questions that we received in regards to the books publications. The first one, if you want to submit conference proceeding paper in Springer, how is the process?
Okay. So the first process is contact a Springer editor. So that's me.
It's you, yes.
Yes. Yes. So with when you contact me, and you have to give me some information about the conference. So I have a proposal form, which is great because it contains all the questions to the answers I need from you. So I'll probably send you the proposal form. So proposal form will ask you things like, what is the link of the conference, and the review system of the conference, because we are particularly interested to make sure that the conference articles are peer reviewed by at least 2 reviewers, things like this. So we will go into the proposal form will ask all this kind of information. So once you submit the proposal to us, then we go through this review process, and if Springer is satisfied, we sign a publishing agreement, and with this publishing agreement, we will agree on the terms and conditions, and also based on that, you also have to decide whether will this be published proceedings. Do you want this to be done before the start of the conference, or is it okay for us to publish after the conference? So these are the different things that we have to talk about. Okay.
One thing, Ramesh, if I can just add, because
Sure.
In my earlier role, I was also part of the lecture notes in computer science and various other satellite series. I can tell you that just for reference, that when we are looking at a conference, there are a couple of things that we closely look at. First is that the aims and scope of the conference, it has to be very specific, because broad scope conferences means that peer review can be diluted. When we say that peer review process is very important, as Ramesh rightly said, then how much time you are actually giving for the peer review process. So, and which also means that how many papers you are expecting, and say if you're saying 300 papers will be submitted, then you ought to have at least 2 to 3 months for the peer review process to be completed, because in a conference, it's always very timely from date of submission to date of notification of acceptance is very tight schedule. So we look at that also. So first is aim and scope. Second is the duration given to peer review. Third is who are the people who are involved. It's very, very important. So who are the people who are general chair, program committee chair, because if these people are the ones who are responsible for taking call on the acceptance or rejection of a paper in the peer review process. Besides that, if people have agreed to be in the technical program committee, then did they accept to be in the technical program committee, or the names are simply there. So these are a couple of the things that we look at to ascertain the quality of a particular conference, and where else was it published. If it is a long-standing conference, then where all it has been published, whether or not it is available in DBLP, what has been the response of the researchers towards it. These things are very, very important for the board of a particular conference proceeding series to be taking a call on a particular conference proceeding. Over to you, Ramesh.
Yes. Thank you, Sandra, for the additional note. Ramesh, would you like to go ahead with the second question, or perhaps the third one? Yeah.
Question, is there a rule presenting drafts from a published article? Okay, you need to apply for permission because the copyright of that draft or that table is already published in I assume in a journal article or even in a book. So there is copyright protection or copyright transfer already to that journal. So you probably need to go to the journal website, and then you probably need to look at the guidelines on how do you go about doing this. So you cannot publish any copyrighted material in Springer books without this, and we will ask you for that. Definitely, when we receive your manuscript, we will ask, oh, this this figure appears to be from a journal article, have you asked them whether is it okay to reproduce it in the Springer book? Yeah. Okay. I think yes. Okay. Third question: does does the book published by Springer have copyright or IPR for each author? IPR. I'm not very sure what is IPR.
I guess it's the intellectual property right.
Property rights. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Published by Springer have copyright for each author. Well, the thing is, when a book is published by Springer, Springer actually have I think we have new contracts now. So we have what you call the commercial license. So the copyright belongs to the author, but Springer has the copyright license to print, to sell, to distribute, things like this. And of course, if someone else is doing the same thing, like some other person is, trying to commercialize a Springer book, then Springer will take action against that. So this question, I don't think I answered that question. Maybe I didn't understand the question, but yeah.
Shall I pitch in? See, the thing is, now what happens is intellectual property right is basically when you are creating any work, whether it is an artistic work, a book, a design, symbol, anything, then you have right over it because it is your intellectual property. So moral intellectual property right is always there with the designer or the owner or the writer or the author of a particular work. However, for a publisher to sell, disseminate, translate, etc., those various terms that we use, as Ramesh was rightly saying, to be able to disseminate, translate, sell, etc., of your work, they need a license. And that license comes with copyright. Now it has changed. We are also talking about license to publish, etc. We are trying to give license to the authors in journals. We are also debating how do we do that in books. So those are various licenses you give. Otherwise, why and how can a publisher sell or disseminate your work over which you have the right? So that is where the difference lies. But the moral right always remain with the author.
Okay. Thank you, Suvira. I think I think all the questions are all nicely answered right now. So of course, I think we do have many questions actually in the chat box. So we'll do our best to try to address it to the both speakers of the day. Hopefully, then there will be a follow-ups coming. So I guess before we wrap up the sessions, we really want to thank everyone for attending the sessions. Before we actually release everyone, actually will be very much appreciated if you can answer our survey that's going to send it over to you to help us improve. And I think all the participants could expect an e-certificate to be made available to you after the sessions, as well as the materials that are the link of the recording of these sessions, as well as the PowerPoints like that for the both speakers. We will circulate through your respective registered librarian or the library that you registered your participations in this session. With that, I would like to say thanks. Apologies for some technicals that's happening. So I think all in all, we've been receiving a lot of issues of the technical. We apologize for that. But please help us to improve by answering some of the survey that you're going to receive. Thank you, everyone. I think with that, we will end the session right away. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you, both speakers and all the team members that helped me to make this happen. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.